My name is Catherine Kronick. It is? Okay. Okay. I'm with Michigan Rehabilitation Services, which is a state agency that operates throughout the state of Michigan, and I'm with the Grand Rapids office. And we have with us today Barry Reinick and Claudette Reed, and they are from the Disability Management Program, which is affiliated with Michigan Rehabilitation Services, but they don't do exactly the same thing. They do some very different and unique things, and they're going to talk with you today about adventures and accommodations, talking about how do employers retain those good employees as the workforce ages, what types of things do you need to think about to reduce your liability, and do what you can to retain good workers. So Barry and Claudette, it's all yours.
Well, good morning. Thank you. Boy, did you see the moon last night? Wasn't it gorgeous? I had a great opportunity to be here downtown staying with a nephew that's in the Grand Valley graduate program for physical therapy. What a beautiful campus that is. That's a great area. What a beautiful city. So thank you for the opportunity to come here and speak with you this morning. We're going to start out by talking a little bit on the Disability Management Program. We're part of the Department of Labor and Economic Growth. Our bureau is Michigan Rehab Services, and Disability Management is the program, and we're a statewide resource for employers and employees. And as a resource, we provide assistance with the management of work-related injuries through consultation, evaluation, case coordination, and training. We're a fee-for-service program, which is a little different than most state agencies. Under Public Act 315 of 1982, we're mandated to recover costs. And the reason we're mandated, many of you probably are familiar with the workers' comp law and the auto no-fault law. Both those laws mandate medical, physical, and vocational rehabilitation services that are paid for by the third party that's liable, responsible to pay for those services. And the Act basically says you can't use a state or federal tax dollar, which funds our general program, to pay for the services that an insurance company or a third party that's supposed to be paying. We are all licensed professional staff. We're certified rehabilitation counselors, licensed professional counselors, and our occupational therapists are also licensed and certified. We can assist employers in three major areas. Return to work services, that's through a vocational case management with some medical case management. Services for employees who are at risk, meaning a disability has been identified or medical issues have been identified by a doctor. And we work with employers to prevent a disability. We want to make sure by looking at work risks, what are the factors that could cause a disability and how can we assist the employer in changing those so that it eliminates or averts a claim. Who do we provide services to, or who do we work with? Well, we do a lot of business with the state of Michigan employees, all 21 departments. We also work with district offices, like here in Grand Rapids, if a district office counselor has a consumer that requires assistive technology or reasonable accommodation assistance or needs expertise in a particular area related to occupational therapy, we come in and provide consultation to the district office. We work with private industry, a lot of private industry, MCTI students. Now, MCTI is located in Plainwell, Michigan, Michigan Career and Technical Institute. It's a vocational trade school for students that have disabilities, primarily that have come through the intermediate school district or special needs programs of their school districts and the private sector businesses. We also have in our organization business service reps. Now, these business service reps, they're specialists within our department, within our agency, who do nothing but work directly with employers. And they're available to address a number of individual and systems issues which might impact the effectiveness of workers who have a range of challenges. For example, an employer may have some particular training needs, or he may have a particular case that requires an intervention to support the employer to retain the job. The business service reps out there contacting employers directly on a daily basis, and if they need our assistance, then they get a hold of us as well. Our business service reps were partnerships with employers and the disability management program and the district office. So we're constantly in communication together. Claudette's going to talk to you now about a company that we've worked with, just to give you an example of how we can assist employers. This company is Dabco.
Thank you. Dabco was a company that contacted us, and they were looking at identifying high-risk jobs and looking at what are the issues involved in those jobs. They also wanted us to take a look at training for managers so that they would continue to be able to address these issues in-house rather than having to always be bringing in external people, and looking at providing some training for the team leaders. So when we got to Dabco, we're looking at issues of poor posture, forward head position, seat height. These are the kinds of things that as you look at it, they are likely to end up causing problems, causing time off, and injury to the worker over time. And so those were the kinds of things that are putting someone at risk. And so identifying these first is important, going through and looking at the various jobs. We were able to identify which were the high-risk jobs by the ones that had the most claims, workers' comp claims and other claims related to them. Here is another picture. You can see where the hand controls are just mounted too high on this particular machine. Now at Dabco, we went in, identified what the risks were, and provided options as to ways to be able to moderate those risks. We were not evaluating the persons on those jobs. We were evaluating the capacities that were required for those jobs and looking at ways to reduce the potential for injury. So it was really at a preventative level. We also are available for any kind of services in the future. We worked with the business service rep on this, and the business service rep has worked on several retention cases within Dabco. These are cases where people have some problems, injuries, and they're at risk of losing their job because of that. So that through the information that we're providing, we're able to allow the business service rep to help out in that situation, and they maintain an active contact with the company. Another company that we've worked with is Dakota. Now Dakota wanted us to be able to evaluate a whole range of different jobs, and so we developed a specific evaluation form for them for the type of work that they do. They're a provider for the automotive industry. They make components that go into dashboards primarily. So we developed a specific template for them, and we looked at analysis of 50 different jobs within their organization, and it really was a whole range of different kinds of activities and things that were involved. In doing that analysis, we did a specific analysis of each job, videotaped it, and provided a report that indicated the issues that were potentially a problem and several different ways to be able to relieve that. We also looked at the plant workers as well as the office workers in this situation. Now here's an example. You can see this gentleman is using a tool, and the excessive flexion that he has at his wrist as he's having to grip and push at the same time is putting his wrist at risk. So to be able to change that, all we have to do is to change the angle of what it is that he is working on. Now his wrist is in a straight neutral position, and he's not going to have that same risk. That's an example of the kinds of modifications that we might be looking at. We're not usually looking at changing huge machines. We're looking at changing small things that will allow someone to be able to work at a job without causing injury. And then Barry's going to talk a little bit about some of the financial issues.
Employers are obviously concerned about costs. And one of the biggest costs that employers have to deal with in relationship to disability is musculoskeletal disorders. And these are injuries that result from repetitive motions, putting or placing strain on the soft tissues and the skeletal joints, including carpal tunnel, tendonitis, bursitis, arthritis, and it's the connective tissue. It's that continuous cumulative trauma that they're going to experience difficulty with. So this creates what we know as or what we call a risk management dilemma. Here's a breakdown that identifies how businesses address several types of risk. You can see from this pie chart the total cost of risks, 11% with auto liability, 24% just general liability, and 65% of total risk are usually in the area of workers' compensation. In the state of Michigan, a number of years ago, we took a look at the risk factors and found that not only is work comp a high cost factor, but also the LTD or STD, the long-term disability or the non-duty related illnesses and injuries that persons experience. The weekend athlete, for example. Musculoskeletal disorders, as I said, are the leading drivers, and they account for about 40% of all worker comp costs or the total costs. If you look at other comparisons, a trunk injury, an average cost is $33,800 per individual, or it equates to about 12 months of work at the Michigan average rate for production workers. We look at upper extremity musculoskeletal disorders. The average cost is around $21,453, or new ergonomic chairs for at least 70 of your employees, your workers. We like to have comparisons like this because often when we assess an individual, when we make a recommendation for equipment, the first concern is obviously cost. What's a chair going to cost? And then also a concern raised is, well, if I buy this chair for Claudette, then I'm going to have to buy Barry a chair and Tom a chair and Jerry a chair. And we say that's possible. However, we need to look at these situations on an individual case-by-case basis. One size does not fit all. And we do this kind of comparison. Well, this one cost or this one particular case, it cost you $21,000. Look at what you could save potentially. Here's a breakdown of the estimated costs for musculoskeletal disorders. We talk about direct costs. These are the actual medical costs, medical administration costs, the indemnity insurance, or the wages that are paid, and then the indirect costs. Indirect are the loss of productivity, lost wages, training restaff. You have a ratio of about 2 to 1. I heard the other day from an employer that going through Manpower or a temporary service agency, he's averaging about $32,000 per position to replace somebody, and that can be very expensive, and it may even be higher than that. So overall, how much do musculoskeletal disorders cost? In billions of dollars. Now I want to point out to you on the vertical axis, that's billions of dollars. And you can see these are studies that have been done by Liberty Mutual, NIOSH, OSHA, and the University of Michigan. You can see the costs are kind of varied, but still pretty astronomical when you take a look at the overall picture. And benchmarking these annual costs compared to other disabilities, again, an annual costs on the vertical axis in billions of dollars, you can see where musculoskeletal disorders fall compared to other disability groups. That's one of the reasons why we advocate prevention and retention of your employees. So, how do we help employers address these issues? Well, a lot of organizations talk about lean economics. We like to talk about lean ergonomics. And with that, we're talking about eliminating waste and creating value. How do you do that? Well, you can eliminate waste by reducing work comp costs, by initiating safety and training programs, prevention programs. It reduces your turnover, your absenteeism. The limited wasted motions of reaching, lifting, twisting, material handling. A lot of those activities can be arranged or rearranged. We're working with a gentleman right now. He's a bus mechanic for a local school district. 28 years of service. Excellent employee. Back injury. The doctor wasn't really sure what restrictions to apply. One of the functions of the job was to change bus tires. I didn't know it, but at least once a month buses have their tires changed. So can you imagine a 1,020 bus tire that you've got to change? And this gentleman was picking this up, picking the tires up, caused the injury. Can't go back to doing that work. But when we went in and did our work risk analysis, we identified that it wasn't lifting the bus tire that was the essential function. The essential function was getting the tire on the hub of the bus. So how do you do that? You put the bus on a hoist. You raise the bus at the right height. You roll the tire over. You put it on a little dolly. You slide it onto the hub. You tighten the bolts with an air impact wrench. Limited lifting, no more than about 8 pounds. So just changing that motion, that process helped out. By aligning goals, you increase production, improve efficiency, and overall, and this is sometimes hard to measure, but we hear from satisfaction surveys we get back from the employees and the employers a higher and improved employee morale. People talk. So, if you want to get your employer's attention, what do you need to do? Well, first, quantify the operational impact to your organization. What's it costing? Present costs in a format used for other operating cost comparisons. It's very important. Get your financial folks involved. Present the cost justification and benchmarking. Integrate ergonomics with other initiatives and provide conservative savings calculations. Recent data from the state of Michigan, now this isn't information that we're keeping, but this is through an employee health management through the Department of Management and Budget. Every dollar that the state spends on a state employee to keep them working, keep them safe, it averts a claim of up to $6. Sometimes in some cases I've heard even $11. So for every dollar that's invested, it can save that much money. According to recent statistics through the Washington Business Group on Health, the average cost savings for employers for every dollar that's expended, it can save up to $8 on a national average. We're going to talk a little bit now about how the partnerships with our business service reps can produce positive outcomes. We do a lot of work for Daimler Chrysler and other big three, but Daimler Chrysler we have a particular strong relationship with. Had a highly schooled toolmaker with permanent restrictions to one-headed jobs only, sustained a very serious arm injury. It was a complex case. We had several specialists come in and we worked together. We first evaluated, or we did what we call a clinical interview. We wanted to make sure that we understood the person's background, their educational history, their previous work history, training. We call this a clinical interview. Get a lot of data. We initiated what we call vocational testing, or VMAP, a vocational matrix assessment profile. We're all licensed professional counselors. We have the knowledge, the skill, the ability to assess and evaluate aptitude, achievement, interest, work values, motivation, personality dynamics, put that all together with medical restrictions, etc., identify transferable skills, and also through a labor market survey we can identify potential job opportunities. We just recently worked with a company that, an engineer, very talented young man, very serious musculoskeletal strain with neck and shoulder and upper extremity problems. Through our assessment and through the medical assessment, it was very obvious he could not return to that type of work anymore, couldn't do that work. We were able to locate an employer that could use the skills that this gentleman has through a transferable skills analysis that we completed. And through this labor market survey, we identified an employer downriver that said, yeah, I'm looking for somebody with those skills. So this gentleman did not go on workers' comp. He did not lose any lost work except for some medical. He was unfortunate he had to change employers, but he's back to work. Didn't cost a comp claim to the previous employer, and he's now back to work. That's a lot of what we do. As a result, the client returned to work, former rate of pay, customary job classification, but different job duties and different responsibilities. Therefore, Daimler Chrysler continues to be a valued customer. We have an ongoing relationship. That's the real key, the relationship. That's what we advocate and promote. And we work with, like I said, a number of cases. There's one particular case where a Daimler Chrysler employee had a daughter who had a disability, non-duty, non-work related, but that's when we found out that this person could benefit from our general program through our district office and could get rehabilitation services through the public agency program. Here's another situation with the city of Detroit. I'm going to run through these really quick because I don't want to spend an awful lot of time on this, and Claudette wants to get into talking about assistive technology. But we do a lot of business with the city of Detroit. Again, we arranged a meeting. We talked with the city officials and found out one of their valued employees had particular areas that needed to address work problems, work risks. We work together, and this is the point I'm trying to make. We partner, we work together as a team, and address the issues. Now, some of these services cost, or we charge a fee to the employer paid for by the insurance company. The services that are not directly applicable to the injury are at no cost to the employer. Claudia's going to talk to you about another aspect, and that's ergonomics.
Thank you. Ergonomics is sort of the buzzword. You know, it used to be organic, used to be natural. Now everything is ergonomic. What is ergonomics? Ergonomics is looking at jobs, at activities, all activities, from the standpoint of the person and making the job fit the person as opposed to the person try to fit the job. Now, it sounds really easy, and basically the concepts are easy. The idea is that we should not be straining our bodies in order to be able to do the work that we need to do. Looking at ergonomics allows you to retain experienced workers, and that is extremely important financially as well as production-wise for all employers, and somebody that you've put a lot of time and effort in getting them to the point where they are knowledgeable and productive. To lose them because of an ergonomic issue would really be a loss to the company. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. We're also look to use ergonomics as a way to prevent injuries and to assist people to return from work. One of the things that we originally, when the program kind of got started, we would work with persons who had had workers' comp issues to be able to get them to go back to their job, but they were going back to the same job that injured them in the first place. And then all of a sudden it occurred to us, duh, we've got to change the job or this is just going to be a continual cycle. And that's when we really started to do the worksite analysis. Ergonomic modifications have many different important results. You're looking at retention rates, having fewer injuries, reduced absenteeism, increased efficiency and work quality. And this is something, it's not just for persons who have medical issues or disabilities. Ergonomics can improve the efficiency and quality of work for all workers, and so that there is a generalized effect for that. Lower disability benefit costs and higher morale. Now, two of the types of evaluations that we do, at-risk evaluations, are the worksite and the task or seating chair. This is going into the worksite. Very often this is an office situation and looking at the essential functions of the particular job that the person has to do, how the office is set up currently, and what kinds of modifications may be needed. Often the kinds of things that we're talking about are really very low cost. To get the work surface at the correct height for someone, to make sure that their monitor is at a height so they don't have to be craning their neck up or down to be able to comfortably look at that, or that the monitor is in the right place so they're not leaning forward to try to see what's happening. Getting copy holders so that copy is placed so that they can see it easily while they're working on the computer. Making sure that people know how to use the chair that they have and that the chair fits them properly. We do spend a lot of time on chairs. I mean, I can spend hours teaching somebody how to sit, and you would really think that they already knew that. Yet, when you go and you look into people's offices, the way that they are sitting is exacerbating difficulties that they have. It's causing pain for them. So I wanted to go through quickly what is involved in a chair evaluation. Would anyone like to have a chair fit to them? Come on up. That'll teach you to move your hand. Now, this chair is it's a Hayworth Improv, and it is one of the state's contract chairs. It has a lot of adjustability, and it works very well for the majority of people. It doesn't work for everybody, but it works for most people, and in most situations you want a chair that is adjustable and is going to work for most. Then you can be very specific for persons who have a specific back injury, neck injury, hand, things like that, that they may need a different chair. So what I'm going to do first is to raise it up which is a little too high, but now I want you to sit down. First thing that you want to do when you sit in a chair is to adjust the height of the chair so that it's at the right height. Now, for many women, because we're of smaller stature, we're used to sitting on chairs that are a little high for us. We're used to sort of dangling our feet, or the way that we compensate for that is to cross your legs. That's one of the reasons that women feel very comfortable crossing their legs, because it's like one leg is holding on to the other because the chair is too high. You know, there are standards as far as the height of tables, the height of desks, the height of chairs. And they all work really well for an engineer somewhere who is named Bob, and he is 6'2", and everything fits Bob perfectly. Doesn't fit the rest of us, but it's great for Bob. So what we're going to do is first we're looking, we want the bone of the thigh to be parallel to the floor when your feet are flat on the floor. So I'm going to bring it down just a hair. Okay, now now I've got it at the right height. Very often I'll go into an office and somebody has their chair cranked way up high and everything works except for that their feet are dangling and it pulls them forward in the chair. Once I get the chair in the right height, now everything else is in the wrong place, so that there can be sort of a domino effect. But you get the chair right first and then you fit everything else to it. The next thing I'm going to look at is the lumbar support. In this chair, as in most chairs, there is a forward curve built into the seat, or into the back, and that curve should be at the same place as the curve in your back. Now, everybody doesn't have that curve in exactly the same height from the seat, so that the back of the chair can go up and down and get that into the right spot. So I want you to just lean forward a little bit. I'm going to just raise the back of the chair. Now, lean back. Does the curve seem to be in the right spot? Okay. Now, most people... Good answer! This particular chair has an air bladder that is built into it that you can pump up. Just like in some cars, they have a little button where you can add air to increase the lumbar curve. The next thing that I'm going to be looking at is the height of the arms. Now this is important because most office workers are spending a fair amount of time keying. And when you're keying, if you don't have arms that support the weight of your arms, then what you're doing is you're holding your arms out in space, and it's the neck and shoulder muscles that are holding your arms out in space. So if you're typing for 10 minutes and your fingers are going furiously, the muscles of your neck and shoulders are in a constant contraction. While they're doing that, they're not allowing circulation. They're not allowing blood to flow through because they're tight. So they're not getting oxygen, they're not getting glucose, they're not getting rid of toxins. If you only type for 10 minutes, that's not too bad. If you type for 2 hours, you're really starving these muscles, and that's what causes a lot of the neck and shoulder pain. And so if you put your arms on adjustable arms of the chair, now these muscles can relax. When they relax, they allow circulation to come through, and you don't start to get that hot pain that you get in your neck and shoulders when you've been doing a lot of typing. Now, those just don't fit you yet, do they? No. These are called flipper arms, and one of the reasons is that they flip forward. They also look like a flipper. Now, there's a big button underneath, and I can adjust the height of that. And what I want is the height to be set so that when her arm is at 90 degrees, the weight of her arm is comfortably on that pad. Okay? Now, for her, because she's nice and small, she could use the arms in like this as well. So either way would work to support the weight of her arms and then having her hands on the keyboard. Okay, how does that feel? Okay. Now the last part about this chair is that it does adjust in angle. If you think about it, when you go home and you got to work on paying your bills or something like that, you usually pull a chair up to the dining room table, and the chair is fairly straight, and you're working on things. But when you want to watch TV or read a book, you don't pull a dining room chair over to be able to do that. You do something that is a little more reclined. You choose seating depending upon the task that you're doing. This chair allows you to do the same thing. You can change the angle for that reason. When you are keying, when you are working where you're writing or keying, you want to be in an upright position. You want the lumbar support to really give you good support in your back. And so you want to be very upright. Now, what I've done is I've put it in the most upright position. It's locked in this position, and the seat actually angles down slightly. Can you feel that? And that angling down encourages the lumbar curve. It tilts the pelvis a little bit and encourages that curve. It's that forward curve of the low back that is protective of the low back. We have so many low back injuries that having that extra curve is very important. And it does feel a little odd when you first sit in a chair that has a forward tilt, but you get used to it very easily, and it's very comfortable for keying. But it wouldn't be comfortable if you were sitting in a meeting or having an interview or reading text. And so then you would reach down. Okay, now the chair is in a more reclined position. If she were home, it would be as if she was switching from one chair to another. But here she can get the effect of having multiple chairs just by changing that angle. Now, there's actually, on this particular chair, there are 3 different angles that you can set it. You can have it the most upright position with the forward tilt. You can have the most reclined position, and it actually does rock in that position. If you push back a little bit, you can feel it rock. And you can adjust the amount of tension on the spring to match your body weight. And then there's one position that's kind of halfway in between for the people who cannot make up their mind. No, we would never do that. But how does this feel? Does it feel better than the office chair you have? Yes, I'd like to take No, it's not a prize. Now, many office chairs have adjustments similar to this. There's hundreds of different kinds of chairs, and there's lots of different ways that they adjust. You want to be sure that your people are aware of what the adjustments are on the chairs that they have, and that they are actually working to fit them to themselves. The process is the same. The adjustments are going to be different on different chairs. But I've seen people where you go in and they're sitting in an absolutely wonderful ergonomic chair, and it is adjusted so that it doesn't fit them at all. And you say, well, have you ever tried, like adjusting the back or the seat? And they go, oh, I wouldn't want to touch any of that. I'd be afraid I'd break it. That you don't want to break yourself. The chair should adjust. You should not. And so make sure that people feel comfortable in being able to play with the adjustments that are available on their chairs. Any question about the chair adjustment? Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry. Question. Okay. This chair, the retail price of an Improv is going to be about $800. Now, nobody pays retail. Most businesses will get about a 50% discount, so that you would be looking at about $400 for this chair. The state has a contract, and because they buy a whole lot of chairs, they get an even better discount. I wish I could get the state discount. I can't. But it really, so that the volume that you're looking at is going to impact how much you pay, but it is typical to expect a discount of about 50% off of the retail list. I'm not sure why they have the retail list so high and then they give you the discount. Maybe it makes you feel good, but that's how they do it. Okay, thank you. Okay. Part of the at-risk evaluation is education, and we spend a lot of time helping people to understand how the way that they do things impacts what's going on as far as the safety and the comfort of their body as they're working. And in most situations, half of what we're talking about is changing the way somebody is actually doing things. Encouraging them to take micro breaks, getting up and moving every 45 minutes or so. Now, that does not mean that they get a 15-minute break every 45 minutes. It means that they should stand up and move around out of their chair about every 45 minutes. That encourages blood flow, which is going to reduce musculoskeletal strain. And so just getting up and walking to the printer or standing up and getting something out of an upper file is enough to be able to encourage some circulation. So we do a lot of teaching about appropriate sitting posture, lifting techniques in jobs where lifting is an issue, and if you really look at most jobs, there is some lifting that is involved one way or the other. Stretching exercises to allow people to reduce the strain that they have in muscles that they're using consistently, and reorganizing the workspace to make it more efficient. Just changing where the telephone is, looking where the files that you use most frequently are and making sure that they are within an arm's distance. Taking a look at some of those issues can really reduce the amount of physical effort that somebody has to do to complete their job. And then we provide a written report with recommendations, because after you walk out the door, nobody remembers what you said. If you don't write it down, it won't happen. Now, technology is an area that we are doing more and more and getting more involved in. It is a specialized kind of assessment, looking at how somebody accesses the kind of technology that they need to use to do their job. Now, it may be, when we're talking technology, it may be how do they access a telephone, how do they access a tape recorder, any kind of technology that may be involved, but for the most part we're looking at computer access. That's the biggest issue for most people. When we do this type of assessment, first we look at a person's functional skills. We need to have a good idea of what limitations they have as well as what skills they have, because what we're going to be doing is trying to reduce the impact of any limitations they have by utilizing the skills that are available and that work well for them. And we are able to provide a trial on a range of different accommodations, different kinds of equipment, keyboards, mice, alternate input devices, different types of monitors, and then there's a great range of software accommodations that are also available. Anytime that you touch the computer, you have to be involved with the information technology support people that you have. In the state of Michigan, that's the Department of Information Technology. And so we work closely with them to make sure that anything that we suggest for a state employee is going to be compatible with the systems. And this is a moving target because the systems are always changing. And that's going to be true in any kind of a system, whether it's as large as the state of Michigan or a small business that is getting going. Being compatible with the hardware and software that you have is going to be important for any recommendations. And then training in the use of these types of modifications. Now, the Disability Management Program is a partner with Microsoft. We are a Microsoft Accessibility Resource Center, or a MARC. There are 2 MARCs in Michigan, and the other one is at the University of Michigan. And we were identified as being knowledgeable about accommodations, and that we work with Microsoft to get information out about the accommodations that are available within Microsoft products, and specifically their operating systems. Now, you might say, well, gosh, is this really something we should be doing? The fact is true that 98% of all computers being used are running off of a Microsoft operating system. There are some very powerful accommodations built into the operating systems that most people don't even know about. And so often people are able to modify how their computer works to make it easier for them to function, even if they don't buy anything additional to put on it because of those accommodations. And there's a little disclaimer that they don't actually, they don't necessarily agree with everything we say. I always have to put that on. I'm going to go quickly through the types of difficulties and impairments. If we look at, if we look at the general population, 1 in 4 people have some type of visual deficit. 1 in 4 have some type of dexterity limitation. 1 in 5 have some type of hearing limitation. The red portion are people who actually have a severe vision, dexterity, hearing, cognitive, or speech limitation. So you can see that there's a large proportion of the population who do have some limitation in things that are going to impact their ability to use a computer. And not surprisingly, these difficulties increase with age. And we do have the baby boomers who are getting into the point where more and more accommodations would help them be able to use computers a little bit more easily. Now, if we look at the total population of the country, 57% of computer users are likely or very likely to benefit from the use of accessible technology. Now, this was based on a research study that Microsoft did. And so that we're looking at the majority of people could benefit by making their computer more accessible. And it is only looking like this is going to increase in the future as far as the number of people who can benefit from accessible technology. So I'm going to go through kind of quickly some of the things that are available within the Microsoft operating system. Now, I have two different discs up here, and everybody is welcome to take either one of them or both of them. This one, which has the nice looking red head on it, has all the information about accessibility features that are available within XP, the XP operating system. This one with the blonde lady on it has the information about accessibility features that are built into Vista. Now, Vista is the new operating system. It came out in January of this year, and it is very different. It is a very different approach to the operating system, and with Vista also Office 2007 came out, which has a very different interface, much more intuitive, much more visual, and it is something that can be a very strong benefit to some persons with some deficits, some disabilities. It also is something, because it is brand new, people are reticent to jump right onto the bandwagon. Nobody wants to buy a car the first year that the new model comes out. You want to see what the bugs are and things, and I understand that. But I wanted to be able to provide some information about Vista because it really does have some great opportunities for persons with disabilities as well as the general population. So, in the operating system, you can go in and you can change the way that the screen looks. You can have the screen split and have half of the screen be magnified and half of the screen the normal size. And the function that does that is called Magnifier. Now you can, in Magnifier in XP you can magnify up to 10 times. In Magnifier in Vista you can magnify up to 16 times. Now when you get up to that kind of magnification, it becomes very pixelated. It becomes the characters are very choppy and hard to really look at and read. And at that point, if somebody needs that type of magnification, you probably want to go with a separate program like JAWS or Zoom Text, which will smooth out the edges of the text and make it much more easy to read. But if you are looking at having someone need to have something magnified 2 or 3 times, it is a program that is right within the operating system, and you can pull it up on your computer today when you go back. You can change the size of the text, the color of the text, the background color so that the colors pop out. Depending on your vision, changing those things really can make a difference in being able to see things. Changing the screen resolution changes the size of all of the elements on the screen to some point, but not as much as Magnifier will. And you can also change the icon size. I use that a lot for persons who are very visual and may not be very good at reading. The tags that are put on may not be as important to them as being able to see the pictures, and so having those icons larger can be very useful. Having high contrast in colors can really make the colors pop out and make it easier to read. And we've talked about these. Oh, also in Vista, they have the ability to have it automatically read to you a description of images that are on a website or in a document. And you have to first put that description in there, but if you are making a website or a document, it will automatically read that to you, an explanation of what it is that's there if you really can't see it. And as more companies and more entities are using this software, that's going to be a very important thing for people. Using the computer without a mouse or a keyboard. There's lots of things that are built into the operating system that allows you to do this. There is an on-screen keyboard that you can pull up so that that little keyboard that you see would actually be on your screen. And you can access the keyboard by using a variety of different mechanisms. You can use a mouse or another control mechanism to actually click on it. To do that, you have to be able to move the mouse and have the ability to push a button. If you don't have the ability to push a button easily, but you can move the mouse with some control, then you can put it in hovering mode, where if you hold it over a particular letter for a given period of time, it will then access that letter, and then you move it to the next one. So you don't have to be able to push. And if you can do a button, but you can't control the movement, then you can go to scanning mode, so that it scans through first row and then column and highlights each item, and when it gets to the one that you want, then you just press a button to be able to do it. So that persons who have very limited abilities can access by using the on-screen keyboard. Making your computer easier to hear. As people, the computer has a lot of little sounds and things that it does, and if you are hearing impaired, you don't know that the computer is beeping at you or telling you that things are going wrong. You can change the way that the computer does that by having the computer flash at you when it would normally be beeping, giving you different warnings on a visual basis rather than auditorily. It also can provide captions for things that are being said on the computer so that you can read them instead of having to hear them. Making the computer easier to read is something that I'm very excited about, because I do work with a lot of persons who have literacy issues and learning disabilities. And while they physically have no limitation at using a computer, everything is extremely textual, and they don't deal well in that mechanism. So having the computer have some ability to help them in those areas can be very useful. Narrator is a program that's built into the operating system that actually reads everything that's on the screen. Now it's very similar to JAWS or Zoom text, which are designed for persons who are visually impaired, and it truly reads everything that's on the screen. You can use add-on programs as well. Two good ones that I use frequently are Read Please and Text Aloud. Both of them are available as free trials from the internet, and these are our screen reading programs where you highlight text and it will read that to you. So if you have someone who has some literacy issues or someone who has learning disability issues and they really need some help in reading, those add-on programs can be very useful. The Narrator really reads everything on the screen, and it's geared more for people who have visual issues. Making the mouse easier to use. One of the first things, and I don't even think I put it on there, I didn't. Keystroke options are things, ways to be able to do things on your computer without using the mouse. And like Control V is paste, Control C is copy. That's the more of those keystroke options you become familiar with, the less you have to use your mouse. So the easiest way to use your mouse is not to use it at all and to learn keystroke options. So that's often something that I'll be working with people on. You can modify settings within the operating system to change how the cursor looks on the screen, so that it can be different colors, it can be a different shape, it can actually pulse, things that will draw your eye to it for people who have difficulty finding that item on the screen. You can use the numeric keypad of your keyboard to actually move the cursor, so that if you press the 5, it will move directly to the left, and the directions that it does, it moves, and then you can stop. You also can, using voice recognition, you can do cursor control when you're in Vista. There's not voice recognition in XP, but there is in Vista. We'll talk more about that. Making keyboards easier to use is something that is very often looked at. Certainly, within the operating system, you can modify settings such as having sticky keys. If you are someone who is a one-finger typist, and because you have poor control, and you want to be able to capitalize something or do Control-Alt-Delete, how do you press down more than one key at a time? Well, what sticky keys does is it recognizes when you press down Control, it recognizes it as you're still holding it when you press the next key. And that's, for Control, Shift, Alt, so that it recognizes those things. When I first was starting to work on technology, I had a gentleman who had atheroid cerebral palsy. And the way that he would capitalize things is he had a little lead fishing lure with a loop of wire sitting next to his computer. And he would take his finger and he'd catch it and he'd put it on the shift key, and then he'd hit the letter he wanted, and then he'd take it off the shift key and put it down. And that's how he was able to do a capitalization or something like that. So this is way easier than that. You can adjust the way that Windows responds to the keyboard, that's what we just talked about, okay. And also you can adjust how quickly it recognizes, so that if you have someone who doesn't move their finger easily, they won't get like XXXX. It will just recognize it as 1. You also can set it so that if somebody tends to just lightly touch one key as they're going for another one, the very brief hitting will not be recognized, so that there'll be fewer errors. We'll just ignore that. The toggle keys allows you to hear a tone when you are doing the cap lock, num lock, or scroll lock, so people are aware that those things are on. There is the capability of having a handwriting recognition for tablets, and you can have a separate tablet that attaches to the keyboard or to the computer, as well as having a tablet PC, so that you can recognize the handwriting, and that sometimes is a much easier way for people to access their computer. There are utilities within Windows. Voice recognition is something that is now built into Vista, and it is a voice recognition system that is designed for people who need an alternate way to access their computer. It is not designed to be totally hands-free. Now, that being said, the standalone program that I usually use is Dragon Naturally Speaking, which is sort of the industry standard. The voice recognition in Vista the recognition aspect of it is as good as Dragon Naturally Speaking. You use a microphone to be able to access the computer by voice. Now, it does not have all of the capabilities that the Naturally Speaking has, so that it would not be appropriate for someone who had no ability to use their hands, someone like a person who would have a high-level spinal cord injury. But it is a very good option for a lot of people who do input and would like at some time to be able to do it by voice, and maybe at some time do it by hand. The fact that this was built into the operating system makes it accessible to everybody. And in doing that, it's something that's going to then become much more mainstream, and persons who need it because of disabilities are not going to be discriminated against because they need to have this type of an accommodation. And we've talked about the other accommodations as well. I know, I'm going as fast as I can. There, on the Microsoft website, there are a lot of resources that you can get. I do have the discs here. I encourage everybody to take both of them. You can download the information on the discs to your computers, and there is no license to that, so that if you want to download that information and make it accessible to everybody in your office, you can do that. So you can use it on lots of different computers. Looking briefly, this is information about how employers view accessible technology and the benefits that it has. Basically, it's indicating that employers really do see the benefit once they do have a plan of coming in. It would be looking at accessibility as a plan. Employers are able to come in and look at, and Microsoft has identified a 5-step plan as to how to go in and how to look at accessibility within your organization. On the website, there is a great deal of information and a lot of supporting documents, so that if any of you are looking at looking at your whole company as far as accessibility, that would be a great resource for you. These are some of the reading materials that are available on the Microsoft website as well. And now the other services that we provide, accessibility services and assessment, going in and checking sites to see if they are ADA accessible. We've worked with Michigan Works, we've worked with Goodwill, Federal Department of Agriculture, making sure that the worksite is ADA accessible. The kinds of things that we're looking at is a whole range of different areas so that it is a very comprehensive evaluation. We also do work smart evaluations. This is where you go into a work site and you do a brief evaluation of the work site for all of the workers at one time. It would take 15 to 20 minutes per worker, and you'd get everyone in the department done at one time. You do not have to be medically injured or disabled in order to have this type of an evaluation. That's looking at whether your chair is appropriate, whether the heights are appropriate, and the office is set up for the kind of tasks that you're doing. The advantage of doing this is it identifies issues before they become problems for people, and it allows everyone to get the same information at the same time so that after we leave, you can support each other. And that's what we just talked about. And if you have any interest and you need more information, these are the contact information. There you also each have information, the brochure, as well as the ADA Wizard. Did you want to mention that?
Sure, real quick. If you didn't get a copy of the ADA Wizard, let me show you this real quick. We have copies for everyone. This is an employer resource, and it's a disk that just goes in your computer. It has to be accessible through the internet. So when you stick it in your computer, access your internet, and it talks about ADA information, and then also there's a section called My Desk Aid, and it's an employer resource for anything that you want to know or need to know or where to get information. It's here on this disk. So these are available to you as well. That's it. Thank you very much for your attention and the opportunity.